Welcome to Penalty Box Radio, presented by Goldstone Financial Group. Goldstone Financial Group is an experienced team of professionals who will help ensure you receive distinguished service with a plan tailored to your retirement goals. I'm your host, Sean Smith. Joining me tonight is my co-host, Dan Kimmel, also of Penalty Box Radio. Those of you listening on the radio live right now just heard some very interesting commentary from 102.5's Jared Stillman. If you're listening on the podcast, you missed
You're
out.
welcome.
You did miss out. It was a really good show yesterday.
It seemed lively. We'll just say that. But we're not going to talk about the Tennessee Titans. We're going to talk about the Nashville Predators. Since our last show, which was podcast only, the Predators have gone 2-1-0. They sit in 7th place in the division with 33 points in 41 games. That means, and we are at the halfway point of the season.
Yeah, halfway there.
We're
Living on a
halfway
prayer.
there. We're living on a prayer. Whoa. Okay.
Whoa.
12 points out of the second wild card spot, which is really it's kind of this hallmark we've had to look at for the past few seasons. Do the Preds have a chance of making the postseason? Things are looking dire, but as I mentioned, the Preds have gone. They had 2 wins over the last week. The sky's not currently falling because of that, and therefore I don't need to find nice things to talk about with Ann. We can just talk about hockey today. But either way, Ann, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. I thought we would just talk about like who got the better Christmas gift from their spouse, but I guess
we can.
I think we're better off talking about hockey because producer Jake has already ruled that I am the loser.
Oh,
well. Those were not my words. I said that
there was a look that was given.
The heart behind it spoke volumes.
Heavy implications.
Both of the gifts are gifts that keep on giving all year round.
Are they though?
They are.
Much like the Jam of the Month Club.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, currently you can enjoy your gift. I can't enjoy mine. So
okay.
So maybe you did come out the winner. All right. You can guess what our spouses got us if you'd really like to. On tonight's show, we are going to take a look at the biggest issues a talented Predators roster is wrestling with and examine the major storylines that are continuing to develop as the season rolls right along. We're going to start with our puck drop topic like we do every time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to throw this over to Ann. I don't know if she's ready for it. It sounds really bad when I look at it written out there, so I'm going to give a qualifier after I ask the question. But
okay.
And here's the puck drop question. What's wrong with the Nashville Predators? And what I mean by that is over the past week, the Predators played 3 games.
Mm-hmm.
You saw 2 wins, good wins, big wins, exciting wins.
They were.
Going into a game last night against the Jets of Winnipeg, everyone was expecting the Predators, I believe, to come out and put up a fight. And while I can say that they did look like they were doing that, the first period didn't end that way with the Jets up 3-0.
Right.
And of course, eventually the team losing. So when I say what's wrong with the Predators, I mean, why does it seem like as soon as they get going, they take 1 step forward, 2 steps back?
I think that is the existential question, not of the week, but maybe of the season.
Maybe.
For sure. I think in this specific instance, if we just want to talk about this, this penalty box radio week,
right,
in and of itself,
PBR
week.
Right.
I think part of it has to do with the fact that you're playing Winnipeg.
Okay,
number one team in the league. And here's what I say about the NHL. The NHL is the most difficult hockey league, in the world to play in. And so when you look at roster from the best team in the league to some teams that aren't the best teams in the league,
fair,
there is talent on every single roster. But I think what makes a team exceptional, more so than even talent, is that skill set of capitalizing on opportunities.
Okay.
And I think that you get better doing that by doing that. And I think the more you have that experience, the more confidence you gain. And look, Winnipeg has had that this whole season. The Nashville Predators haven't.
That's fair.
And so for me, I think it is learning how to capitalize on every opportunity, because that really is, I think, what makes a team better than another team, even more so than talent, maybe more so than coaching. But I really do think part of it comes from talent and coaching, but you've got to capitalize on opportunities. The Predators went 1 for 8 on the power play against Winnipeg.
Yeah.
So less capitalization there.
Well, I think too, another good word for capitalizing on opportunities would be taking advantage of chances that you're given.
Mhm.
And I think if you go back and listen to what Philip Forsberg said after last night's game against Winnipeg, he talks about giving up some really good chances and them taking advantage of those chances. And we've got
Yes.
to not give up those chances. I think if we kind of analyze like what are these chances, and I think you named one that's very big. The Preds had a lot of chances on the power play.
Yes.
They did not capitalize on those chances like they could have. And that's definitely one thing. That's an execution thing.
Right.
There's power play practice in almost every practice the team has.
Mhm.
They have units they work with. You saw those units get a little bit messed up last night, but still, there are a lot of opportunities they were not able to cash in on the power play. But when Forsberg talks about giving the other team chances, I think another thing to consider here, and this is something that if you've been following along on X, formerly known as Twitter, with the Penalty Box Radio account, something that I've said over the past PBR week is that the difference for the Preds, I think, is whether or not they can limit the other team's ability to get things going in the neutral zone.
Mm.
And I think that's something that you see. I think that's a recurring theme, is that when the Predators are forechecking aggressively, when they can really keep that team pinned back in their own end, it's really hard to get things going through the neutral zone. When teams can take advantage and play strong through the neutral zone, get good, solid zone entries into the offensive zone, they can
Yeah.
make things happen. When the Preds don't play aggressive on the forecheck, and you can see it. If you're watching a game, you can see when they're forechecking heavily. The first two games of this last PBR week, I felt like they forechecked the mess out of those teams.
Yes, I would agree with that.
I did not see that against Winnipeg. And I think when they're giving up those chances, I think that's where they're coming from, is they're not pressing hard enough.
Mhm.
And they're saying, okay, we're going to take care of it another way. That's not working. I think they've got to limit chances by keeping them back in their own end, not letting them get it going through the neutral zone quickly and easily. And I think that's the chances that the other team keeps taking advantage of when the Preds don't do well.
Yeah. It's a momentum thing. I think it's a momentum thing on the ice, but I think it's a momentum thing. Again, I go back to the word existentially. I think it's a momentum thing in the game as well, for sure.
So something else, and we've all got notes here.
Mhm.
Something that you've written down as one of your notes. You talked already about the other part, but here I think it's interesting. A lot of these games that the Predators are losing
Mhm.
are close.
They are close.
And when you're looking at as a measuring stick, like, well, they've lost a lot of games. They've lost a lot of games by one goal.
Mhm.
They've lost a lot of games in overtime, which is another game you're losing by one goal. And I think it's hard because you lose enough of those by one goal. It's like, well, you just need one more goal, but that's the problem, right?
Yes.
Is that when you look at, say, a game like last night where they had so many chances on the power play and they're not able to convert, that's where that one goal comes from,
Right.
is doing a little bit better on the power play, or that's where avoiding or keeping the other team from scoring another goal comes from, is by forechecking the mess out of them and not letting them get anything started.
Yeah. We heard too in the Winnipeg game, I refer to it as the sound of failure, and that is the puck off of the goalpost.
Yeah.
And we've heard that. And look, has been a recurring sound
Yeah.
through this season. You look at Nashville's shooting percentage, 6.15 shooting percentage on shots on goal. This team is generating good chances. There are lines for this Nashville Predators team that are generating really good offensive chances and limiting defensive chances, but not scoring because you are getting so close.
Right.
And yet you hear the sound of failure. Now, I will say this. Last night against Winnipeg, there is the Connor Hellebuck factor.
Well, that's hard to
And that's a
ignore.
verb.
Yeah.
They got Hellebucked.
Yeah, they did.
They got Hellebucked.
That guy, look, I'm going to say this. I've been watching Connor Hellebuck for a long time.
Mhm.
And I'll say that back when there was, and I don't know that it was necessarily a big rivalry, but when you kept seeing the Predators find Winnipeg in the playoffs
Yes.
and things like that, that was the giant factor. When I say giant, because he's a big dude, that was the giant factor a lot of times. And whether or not the Preds were going to win or lose, was Connor Hellebuck on, or was he
Mhm.
just not all the way there? I used to really dislike Connor Hellebuck, but as the years have gone by, I've had to come to terms with the fact that it's not that I didn't like him. He was frustrating.
Yes.
When you were watching the other team and wanting them to do well, it was frustrating to come up against him, especially in a playoff series where you're going to see him in every game.
Repeatedly.
You
Yeah.
may not, you may beat him tonight, but you're not going to beat him the next night.
Yeah.
He's good.
He's good. When Winnipeg and Nashville play, yesterday when Brooks Bratton tweeted out like, hey, Saros and Hellebuck are leading their teams on the ice, there's a part of me
Yeah.
that just wants to grab every NHL fan and go, you got to tune into this.
Yeah.
You don't have to root for either one, but you need to watch these goaltenders
Sure.
because both of them can make just amazing saves. They do it very differently.
Very different.
Very
methods.
different creatures, very different, skills, the way that they do what they do.
Yeah.
But it is just a beautiful goaltending matchup when
I
you see
agree.
those two. Unfortunately, Connor Hellebucked
The Predators.
the Predators. There were other
Fair.
factors too. You lose Luke Evangelista, you lose Steven Stamkos in the game. That affects, Stamkos affects the power play, and then you're running 10 forwards, and this becomes a different thing too. But yeah, there's a Connor Hellebuck factor, and he seems like one of those goaltenders that just is not off very often
No.
at all.
Well, you don't just keep having your name mentioned in the Vezina conversation every year
Yes.
by being off a lot.
Yeah.
You've got to be consistent, and he's been nothing but consistent for the Jets for quite a while
Yeah.
now. I wouldn't be surprised to see him win it again.
Yeah.
Especially with how well the Jets are doing. Look, we're about to go to break. I do want to say this before we go, because especially if you're listening out there in Nashville, there's a lot of excitement around the other professional sports team in town because they fired their general manager. And I think it's people were like, well, they can fire a general manager there. And people start saying,
Oof.
oh, what about Barry Trotz? I just want to say this, okay? I don't want to get into a big conversation about it. We don't have time. But people have to realize that Barry Trotz is still cleaning up from David Poile.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think it's necessarily a situation where you can say, well, none of this is his fault. None of these decisions are his, because a lot of them are. But he's still dealing with contracts he didn't make, players he didn't sign, players he didn't draft. And he's got to fit. And if you want to say, well, let's move away from it, now someone's going to have to clean up Poile's mess, plus what Barry Trotz is trying to accomplish. And you're just going to get into this situation where you're always having to clean up. And that's what I think you're seeing happen with the Titans. Do you really want to see that with the Predators? So, that's all I'm going to say about that. If we want to talk about it more later, we can.
You don't want to quote what Jared Stillman said?
I do not want to quote what Jared Stillman said. It was very exciting. I think it's definitely must listen radio. If you don't want to have awkward conversations with your children in the car, maybe be like, hey, earmuff it for me. But it was definitely interesting. Speaking of planning for the future, and planning for the future doesn't have to be complicated. At Goldstone Financial Group, they help you create a personalized financial plan to secure your retirement. Whether you're thinking about your 401k, IRA, or just want to invest smart, they've got you covered. Just like the Nashville Predators strategize for every game, Goldstone Financial strategizes for your financial success. Visit goldstonefinancialgroup.com today and start planning for tomorrow. Speaking of tomorrow, and the Predators don't play tomorrow, but they do on Saturday at home.
Yeah.
And if you can't make it to Bridgestone and you're looking for a great place to catch a Preds game, I'd send you to Beyond the Edge in East Nashville. But you don't have to just take my word for it. Beyond the Edge has been voted the best sports bar for the second year in a row in the Scene Nashville Readers Poll. More than 30 TVs and 25 beers on tap. You'll never miss any of the action. They've got great food, great drinks, and the perfect spot to watch the game. Visit them at 112 South 11th Street in East Nashville or online at beyondtheedge.net. Make Beyond the Edge your go-to for every big game. Welcome back to Penalty Box Radio. If you're looking for your next night out, Stars and Strikes in Smyrna has something for everyone. Whether you're into bowling, laser tag, axe throwing, or their newly expanded arcade, the fun never stops. Plus, their full menu and bar make it the perfect spot for group events and birthday parties. Oh, and it's also a great place to catch Predators game while you're there. Check them out at starsandstrikes.com. Let me say a little bit about that because I think it's important. Their bowling alley, right? It has giant TV screens above the lanes. And I don't mean like the TV screen above the approach where you throw the ball, but I mean down above the pin setters. They take up like the TV takes up like 2 lanes. It's huge. And you can put the game on for you. Great place to watch it. And you can bowl at the same time.
I keep circling back to axe throwing.
I'm telling you.
100%.
I'm telling you. Who was it that was throwing axes? Was it Action Sean or Adventure Sean?
Adventure Sean.
Adventure Sean. Yeah, that's who it was. Okay.
Axe throwing with Adventure Sean.
All right. Coming up next. Not
That's
really.
right.
Okay. So look, let's shift gears.
Okay.
That's not a hockey term. We're gonna shift gears. That's a racing term or a driving term. I don't know. Can people even shift gears anymore? Everyone drives an automatic.
I can. Can you can drive a manual, correct?
Not very well, but I can drive a tractor.
Then what else do you need?
What else do you need?
Yeah.
Those are the same.
They're the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean I can do it on a tractor on the road. It's probably a bad idea.
Okay.
Might scare some people. But we're going to shift gears and we're going to talk about what's going right
There we go.
for the Predator because again, 2 wins this week. And I know
True.
everyone is hoping for win number 3 last. It just didn't happen.
Yeah.
So let's talk about what's going right. And you've got some really good information here that I want to just jump right into.
Yeah, and I love this segment because the hockey optimist, the Hocktimist in me just
Hocktimist.
lives my best life when we get to talk about some things that are going right because I think we all know that there are some things that still need to address, but there are things that are going right. And the one thing that I really think we want to focus on is that your best players are playing like your best players. And this
Right.
is something that wasn't necessarily happening at the beginning of the season. Just took some time. And so I pulled some numbers because who doesn't like to kind of look at the stats? You can eye test this, but you can also back this up with numbers. And so I looked at Jonathan Marchessault's first 10 games that he played at the beginning of the season. 2 goals, 6 points. Jonathan Marchessault in his last 10 games, 7 goals, 12 points.
Wow.
Yeah. Steven Stamkos's first 10 games with the Predators beginning of the season, 1 goal, 3 points. His last 10 games, 4 goals, 9 points.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about Ryan O'Reilly. In
Ooh.
his first 10 games played, 3 goals, 8 points. He has 5 goals in the last 10 games. Philip Forsberg. First 10 games played, 5 goals, 9 points. Forsberg in the last 10 games has a goal. He has 14 points. He has 5 multi-point games in the last 10 games.
Now, what I like about this is it's always fun to like cherry pick stats, right? You can look and say like, well, Ryan O'Reilly had an outstanding week. He scored 3 goals. He scored more goals than anybody else on the team. We could do that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think when you can look at it in the greater context of how did things start, again, we're at the halfway point.
Right.
How did things start?
Mm-hmm.
You've done that here.
Yeah.
Very well. And look, I think a lot of people want to talk about Marchessault's slow start. Usually we're talking about Saros' slow start, but here we're talking about Marchessault's slow start because it seemed like that was the conversation game after game. Marchessault's got to get it going. He can't seem to get it going.
Yes.
He'd score a goal. Like, hey, he's getting it. He feels better when he feels like he's contributing. But you look and you say, okay, 2 goals and 6 points. You're a little bit over a half, point per game player. It's not great.
Yeah.
It's not terrible. But it's not what you would expect.
It's not expectations.
Right.
Yeah.
But then you say, okay, it seems like he's been trending up. Well, over the last 10 games, he's over a point per game player.
Yeah.
And
stats tell the
that's
truth
good.
unless they're lying. That's what my husband, the analyst, always say. Stats tell the truth unless they're lying.
That's right. And again, Stamkos, similar situation. 3 points over the first 10 versus 9 points over the last 10. And it's not quite a point per game, but it's close enough.
Yeah.
It's going to keep you on the ice every night if you're trying to break through, right?
Yes.
I mean, obviously, Steven Stamkos, he's not going anywhere. But what I mean is if you were a player trying to break into the NHL from the AHL and you were a 0.9 point per game player, you'd probably stick around for a while.
That's right.
I don't think they would have any problem with that. O'Reilly, goaling it up recently.
Yeah.
I'll take it.
Love
and,
to see it.
And look, let's talk about Philip Forsberg, because when you are what I would like to say an elite player,
Mhm,
okay, and I don't know that everyone would agree with me. I think a lot of people would
mhm.
about Philip Forsberg. I think he often gets overlooked in that conversation for some reason. And
Yes, I think you saw that at the All-Star game last year.
that's exactly where I was going to go.
Yeah.
Is they were like, "Hey, Forsberg's actually pretty good." Like,
And we're like, "This is just a
we know
Tuesday."
this.
Like, that's just Tuesday Philip Forsberg.
We know this. This is not news to us.
Yes.
I'm glad that you are seeing what we get to see all the time.
Yes.
Forsberg showed out
Yes.
at the All-Star game, and it was great, right?
Yeah.
We've seen that consistently. But he wasn't scoring goals. Now, obviously, okay, look, assists are the same as goals because they lead to goals,
Mhm.
right? But when you're an elite player, you can make plays happen, whether you're the one scoring the goals or whether
Mhm.
you're the one setting someone up to score a goal, because you have that vision. You have that hockey IQ you keep hearing about. You can see what's going to be there by the time you pass the puck there, if you're reading the ice right. And I think it's really, I don't know. I think some people are frustrated with the fact that there aren't goals, but I look at this and I'm like, but he's contributing to every goal that happens with his line mates
Right.
who are scoring. I mean, you can have it both ways. He could be getting assists and goals, but I'll take all of these assists piling up because that means they're scoring.
Right. I would agree. And I know that, this was a career-long goal scoring drought for Philip
Right.
Forsberg, and it's not typical for his performance. But again, I say just what you say. This is not because he has not contributed for 18 games. It is
Correct.
because his role has looked a little bit differently. Now, when you are losing games by one goal, Philip Forsberg is usually that one goal kind of guy because of just how he plays the game,
Right.
because of his shot, because of how he scores, because how he sees the ice. And so I'm with you. Like, I'm here for both.
I'll take it.
I'll take both. But anybody who has been saying Philip Forsberg has not been contributing, false.
Yeah. No,
False.
it's almost painful when you hear it.
It is painful. So yeah, so are the words that I say in my head.
Okay.
Painful.
Also, another thing that's going right,
Mm.
and you've got, again, you've got the data here that I really appreciate.
Yeah.
We get to see what we've been seeing, what's in the pipeline.
Yes. Yes. And I think this is really important, especially for where the Predators are in the standings. Because let's face it, and we're going to talk about these numbers later on in the show. Nashville's chances to make the postseason, not terrific, y'all.
No.
Not terrific.
No.
But this is what you do now. You look and see, what do we have in the pipeline?
Right.
And I always say, general managers, it's a lot like going grocery shopping. You want to look in your cabinets and your fridge
Right.
before you go to the draft.
Absolutely.
Know what you've got, know what you need. Otherwise, you shop hungry. It's not great. And in the pipeline, Nashville is getting to see what's in the refrigerator. Adam Wilsby.
Mm-hmm.
You got to be thrilled with what you've seen from him. I know he's on IR. Don't like that. But the glimpse that we've seen of Adam Wilsby
Looks good.
looks good. Nick Blankenberg. You got to like what you've seen from him. He's under contract through 25-26. This could be a really great kind of bridge defenseman for the Predators. Spencer Stastny is back. Can we just take a moment? Thank you. And here's the part that just blows my mind about Spencer Stastny. Back, looks like he's never been anywhere
I know.
else. Just unflappable, back at it in his natural habitat. Mark Del Gaizo, another defenseman that we've gotten to see
Yeah.
who is coming down. We're seeing Zachary Leroux. We're seeing him in an elevated role. Ozzy Weisblatt. Let's just be clear. Who does not love a Weisblatt?
Hey.
Gotten
It's
to
impressive.
see him. Fedor Svechkov.
Mm-hmm.
You're seeing what he's capable of. And I also want to shout out Justus Annunen.
Yeah.
You are seeing, okay, when Askarov moved, everybody said, now what happens? Now what happens? I'd like to introduce you to Justus Annunen.
Yes.
And how that all transitions still maybe remains to be seen, but you have an idea looking forward. And I think that is something that Predators fans, while this season is disappointing, can feel encouraged about. You are seeing what's in the pipeline, and there's some good pieces there.
Get you excited about thawing some things out.
It does. It does.
Okay. And look, here's the other thing. And this, the teams talked a lot about being connected and connection and things. And I think that's been something, I think that focus on connectedness when the team was losing a lot, and everyone was like, okay, that's what we're
Yeah.
focused on. But Andrew Burnett talked about some team chemistry, and we don't have time to read it all. We're limited in time, man. It's terrible.
It is terrible. Otherwise,
We
we'd
need
be here
more
all
time,
day.
but we could be here all day. He said, I think obviously we've had our struggles. We've made some changes. We're trying to develop an identity, trying to develop a little bit of culture and some chemistry. I thought there's been some really good steps throughout this road trip. Thought it was an emotional game in Minnesota. Then you go into Vancouver, and you've got Michael McCarron that sticks up for Forsberg and fights Dakota Joshua. And those little things kind of bond a team. And then the next night in Calgary, you have Jonathan Marchessault, who doesn't usually fight that often, sticking up for a teammate. And then Steven Stamkos, who goes down arguably as one of the greatest goal scorers of all time, with the potential to score an empty netter. For him to potentially get that one just moves him up the ladder. But I think he showed some real selflessness in an unselfish act to find O'Reilly instead for the hat trick. And those things might seem small, but I think when you're part of a team and part of a group, they're big. I would have to agree with that.
100%. Absolutely. I think the Predators struggled early to find those things because individually they were struggling to find their game. Now that they're individually finding their game, you are seeing these things happen. Look, Jonathan Marchessault, he walks around like I wouldn't poke that bear.
No.
Just his natural
No.
vibe, very Arthur Fonzarelli. Like he's going to pound the jukebox and it's going to play
It's
music.
going to play the song he wants to hear.
But you never saw Fonzie fight anybody. He
No,
didn't have to.
Didn't have to.
That's Jonathan Marchessault.
Too cool.
Too cool. But then Jonathan Marchessault did. That changes things when you're like, you don't really have to prove anything to anybody, but you do. And I agree. I think very small things build very big connections.
But I think you're starting to see that play out.
You are. We just need to see it consistently.
And that's what we talked about in the first segment, the consistency.
Consistency.
Well, I'll tell you what, and as Preds fans, we know the importance of playing both offense and defense. At Goldstone Financial Group, they apply that same mindset to your retirement. They're not just about growing your assets, but also protecting them. With decades of experience, they can help you build a strategy that secures your financial future. Head to goldstonefinancialgroup.com to learn more and get your game plan in place. Welcome back to Penalty Box Radio on 102.5 The Game. Stars and Strikes in Smyrna has everything you need for a fun-filled outing. Bowling, laser tag, axe throwing, and their huge new arcade, which is a sight to behold. I promise, I've been there recently. With a full menu and bar, it's also the perfect place to host birthday parties or group events. And if you're a Preds fan, you can catch the game while enjoying great food and drinks and bowling. As we talked about earlier, visit starsandstrikes.com and start planning your next adventure.
All right, Sean. So we have talked about a number of things in this, episode so far, but I want to pull up an article that we had on penaltyboxradio.com.
Yes.
Great article by our own Eric Dene.
Yes.
And I think for people who are feeling very frustrated with the Nashville Predators, I want to affirm your feelings, but I want to offer a perspective. And
Okay.
I think this is such a well laid out perspective from Eric that I think we need to talk about it on the show.
Can I say before we begin, I want to point out that we've said this for years. I've worked with Eric and written with Eric for
Say
a
it.
long time. He is, I don't know anyone that when I say this, that knows the prospects in the Predators organization better than Eric Dene. He is incredible.
Incredible.
I think he spends all of his time, all of his free time, which I don't know how he finds the time,
I don't either.
watching all of these names you're going to hear. He's seen them play. And here's the other thing I'll say. He probably knew who they were before the Preds drafted them.
Oh, 100%.
He's familiar with them.
100%.
He knows, and he could tell you really quick on draft day, great pick, not impressed. It's shocking how well he knows the stuff. So when we say he's written this article, I would just take his word for it.
Yeah, he knows what he's talking about. And I agree with you, Sean. He knows even before draft comes, he does a great draft preview. It's fantastic. But, kind of talking about, yes, there are general frustrations and concerns with the Nashville Predators this season. Of course, they've traded away and lost some young pieces. We've talked about
Fair.
Yaroslav Askarov, Juuso Parssinen, Phil Tomasino that just didn't pan out. You've spent a lot of money in the offseason on these veterans. And, still the team sits kind of at the bottom of the league. Nashville was expected to be a contender. They're not, and you've just seen some players like Tommy Novak, Luke Evangelista not quite get to their game this season. So understandably, fans are frustrated with the results so far. This is a sentence from the article. And when Eric says this, I say, tell me more. Eric says, and I quote, after laying out these frustrations, I remain oddly excited about the near-term future of this franchise. And when Eric says that, I say, tell me why.
Okay.
So if you are looking at where the Nashville Predators are right now this season, this is as close as they have been to a top 5 draft pick in forever,
Right.
in ages. And, you're looking at Puckpedia kind of gives you not only just odds to make the playoffs, but odds to get the first overall pick. The Predators have a 3.9% chance to make the playoffs. So you're saying there's a chance. But they have a 4.4% odds to get the first overall pick. Now, San Jose, Chicago, much higher percentage. But Nashville is in the conversation.
In the mix.
And Eric mentions some players by name, one of whom I think a lot of people who watch World Juniors very familiar with.
Yeah.
James Hagans. This is Team USA, 7 games, 5 goals, 9 points. Porter Matone is another prospect. He's ranked as one of the top 5 prospects. Michael Misa is another one. He's tied for first in goals and second in points in the entire OHL. Those are just 3 of the forwards that Eric names as forwards the Predators could get with the top 5 draft pick. That could potentially be franchise-changing forwards.
Right.
Who doesn't want that?
I want
that. You also have to look at what does Nashville have, and this is what Barry Trotz is working through here. And you're looking,
and this is what we referenced talking about dealing with David Poile's decisions, right?
Yes.
This is what Poile was able to bring in. It's in the organization. Now, Trotz has to look and evaluate and say, this is an avenue we want to go down. This is an avenue we're done looking at.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And you look at some of those core pieces that Barry Trotz is looking at, and we've seen them. Nashville Predators fans have seen Luke Evangelista.
Correct.
They've gotten a really good look at Zach LaRue. I know Evangelista's numbers are great. I think this is a sophomore thing. Trust me when I say it's there. Trust Eric.
It's gonna be okay.
Trust Eric
Right.
when he says that. Zach LaRue, we're looking at somebody who's very physical player,
Mhm.
but also has the potential to kind of be that offensive scorer
He
as well.
does.
Fedor Svechkov. If you are not excited about Fedor Svechkov's on ice play, then be excited about his post game interviews.
He's great.
He's
my favorite already.
so delightful, but he also is showing you that he sees the game at an NHL level. David Edstrom, another one who really shone at the World Juniors for Team Sweden. The Sweden me loved it. 7 games, 4 goals, 6 points. We got him in the Yaroslav Askarov trade, and everybody was so busy weeping and gnashing their teeth. They overlooked the fact
Yeah.
that this is a major asset. And you still have Joachim Kemmel, who I suspect we will see perhaps some this season. So you've got an up and coming core. You've got potential for a top 5 pick in this draft. And then you've got returning veterans next season. Here's what's real. Marchessault, Stamkos, Forsberg, Yossi, they're not going to go anywhere. And quite frankly, despite what a lot of people say, you don't want them going anywhere. Okay. They are still going to be your team leaders. They could lead this team to be a contender, and they're who you want mentoring young players and kind of setting culture. Same goes for Ryan O'Reilly as well. You've got great leadership in the locker room. And then Eric mentioned some longer term prospects. The first one, look, I could talk about him for days. Why? He plays for Penn State. Aiden Fink leads the Penn State men's hockey team, 9 goals, 36 points in 18 games played. This kid, nobody told him that he was a 7th round draft pick.
No. Nobody.
Nobody told him. Nobody tell him.
No. Yeah. Don't. And this is what I think when we talk about Trotz, having to deal with decisions that Poyle made. This is the famous traded for. This is
Yes.
the last pick David Poyle made as a general manager was Aiden Fink. And I want to say, and I'm not putting the guy down, that this was kind of like, we just looked and saw who was available.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that was a great choice.
Well done. And you want to talk about somebody who got the significance of that and has embraced it. And he also just is really thriving in that Penn State hockey program. It's a great program. Teddy Stiga is a name we've heard a lot. Teddy Stiga, hey, thanks for winning our whole entire country a gold medal at World Juniors.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
He's in the Preds pipeline. You've got Matthew Wood. You've got Igor Surin, who I think is one of that Trotz swing for the fences pick. And you got to love what we saw from him. And again, it's a different beast drafting in the NHL. But if Eric is saying, hey, you have pieces here.
Yeah.
The Nashville Predators have pieces to be excited about. They also have 25 draft picks coming in the next 3 seasons. There is cap space. They're going to have next year about $12 million, and that's if the cap doesn't go up.
Right.
So there's, we're going to have to wait and see. Ryan Johansson's money is going to come off the books pretty soon. In the next couple of seasons, you're going to get rid of the little bit we still owe Matthias Ekholm. And then 2 more seasons of Kyle Turris to pay him.
The ghost of Kyle Turris.
The ghost of Kyle Turris. So what does it mean? This is what Eric says. And again, if Eric says it, we think you need to listen. He says Nashville is, quote, steps ahead of a full tear it down rebuild. And I think people need to hear that.
I think they do. I agree.
You don't need to tear it down. If you look at what you have in the cabinet, you don't need to spend hours in Publix.
No.
There are some good pieces here that Barry Trotz can really build. Not only just a short-term team with Marchessault, Stamkos, Yossi, but can really build something down the road in 4, 5, 6 seasons that has the potential to be really intriguing in Nashville. So a word of encouragement from Eric Dene.
Oh, and I'll say this too. You talk about cap space, and I think there's a lot of moves that have been made recently that people are criticizing by Trotz. And I'll say that if you want to criticize the Carrier-Barron trade, you can. But I think that the reality is that you've taken money off the books.
I think that's very much a factor in that trade.
And I'm not saying that to say anything negative about anybody. I'm just
No.
saying that this is a player, I believe last year of his contract. Is that correct?
Justin Barron?
Yes.
Great question. Let's look.
I think so, but he's also substantially cheaper
Mhm.
than Alex Carrier was. And it's like I think you've got to look at it from the perspective. This is his last
He
year.
has one more year.
One more
Through
year.
25, 26. One more
Okay.
year. 1.15 million.
And you mentioned Edstrom.
Oh.
And I saw this just before we went on, even though it's a little bit older. Nick Keyser pulled this today. Trotz commented today I got 2 calls from 2 different teams trying to see if we'd move Edstrom. So you can be excited about Edstrom in the system. You could also be excited for what he may bring to the team and trade value, because again, this was the player that everyone overlooked while they were busy with the wailing and weeping and gnashing of teeth over Askarov, right?
Yes.
So, yes, he may be gone, but what I think a lot of people haven't realized that they brought someone in that's garnering a lot of attention and a lot of excitement.
Yeah.
So,
Trotz don't take those calls.
yeah, what are you doing?
Yeah. The one thing I do want to say, and we touched on being a GM a little bit earlier in the show,
Right.
and you don't want to harp on this,
No.
but I do want to say this about general manager job. Fans tend to watch hockey, and I've said this before, game to game. Coaches tend to view hockey in chunks of the season, like
Right.
maybe 20 game stretches. General managers are looking at 3 years out. They look
Right.
seasons ahead. And so when you look at a trade like the Alexander Carrier trade, you can look at it right now and say, "Oh, this trade doesn't make any sense. You lost somebody who's a top 4 defenseman," and you did. That's who Alexander Carrier was.
Fair.
But you also need to be careful that you aren't criticizing a chess move as being a bad checkers move. Barry Trotz is playing chess. And I'm not saying that, he's more intelligent.
Right.
I'm just saying he is playing a different game than checkers.
Well, I agree.
We don't know if he's a great chess player yet. We'll find out in several seasons. But you can't criticize a chess move. If he's moving the rook, don't say he should have said king me. 2 different games.
That's true.
So I just would say, as a caution, definitely we can look at the optics of a move. We can talk about a move in a vacuum, but just remember, as a general manager, he's playing some chess.
Well, and I hope everyone's at least a little bit more optimistic about the future now. If you want to read that article, go to penaltyboxradio.com and check it out. Coming up next, we have the PBR Awards. But first, just like the Nashville Predators are committed to winning on the ice, Goldstone Financial Group is committed to helping you win with your retirement planning. From tax strategies to investment advice, they make sure you're prepared for whatever comes next. Don't leave your financial future up to chance. Trust the experts at Goldstone Financial Group. Check them out at goldstonefinancialgroup.com and set yourself up for success. Welcome back to Penalty Box Radio Live on 102.5 The Game. I kind of wanted to wait that song out a little bit, get to the good part. Listen, Beyond the Edge Sports Bar in East Nashville has just been voted the best sports bar in town in the Scene Nashville's Readers Poll. So if you're looking for the best spot to catch every Preds game, head over to Beyond the Edge. With over 30 TVs and 25 beers on tap, you'll never miss a moment. It's the perfect place to relax with friends, grab some great food, and watch your favorite teams. Visit them at 112 South 11th Street in East Nashville, or check them out online at beyondtheedge.net. Beyond the Edge, where every seat is the best seat in the house. And I'm going to say that's true. You can see whichever TV you want from any seat in that place. Not a bad seat in there. Great place to go. We've got very exciting the PBR Awards.
Yeah.
Always starting off with the Beyond the Edge Award. It's always kind of fun to lead in with that commercial to go straight to their award. The Beyond the Edge Award, Ann, it always goes to the player that just gave a little bit extra. And it's kind of hard, I think, when you've dealt with some of the down weeks, the down PBR weeks we've had where the team hasn't performed so well. Sometimes it's hard to pick out those performances.
True.
It was a lot easier for me this week because the Preds, this PBR, we played a little bit better. So look, here's the thing. This week, I've got some nominees. I want to talk about them in a little bit more detail than normal. Jonathan Marchessault is one of my nominees. We talked about him. We have over the course of the season talked about him a lot. Really, over the last stretch of games, he's been on fire.
Yes.
I think a point in every game except the shutout, I believe. Is that correct?
Sounds right.
And just really, really finding his stride. And I'm going to say I didn't choose him this week because he was helping make goals happen, although he did help 3 goals happen. I chose him for roughing up punks.
Welcome to the NHL, Matt Coronado.
And
Great
my
to
thing,
see ya.
look, my thing is, the way that all goes down, you get that awkward, I don't know if it was a hit, they're just wrestling Forsberg to the ground. He's coming all the way across the ice and taking dudes out. And then the resulting fight after that, it's like, you know what? I've had enough. You're not pushing my line mate around. I'll take it. You got to stand up for people. And I'll say this, there's been a lot of fighting has no place in this sport anymore kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I disagree.
Okay.
And I've gone on record as saying that numerous times. I disagree because, again, there was no call there on whatever happened to Forsberg, and maybe it wasn't even a penalty. But at the end of the day, you can't let people take liberties with your teammates.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is true in life. I'm not saying you should get in fights all the time, but I'm saying you got to stand up for people.
Right.
Hockey is one of the last places that you can do that physically.
Mm-hmm.
Stand up. And I think it's good. It was good to see Marchessault do that, in my opinion, because that kind of leads me to my next nominee.
Okay.
Which is Fedor Svechkov, who I nominated him for scoring when it really mattered against Calgary to really drive that nail in the coffin that kind of said, nope, this is our game, not yours.
Yes.
Shutting it down. And look, Jonathan Marchessault knew it happened right after that. Goal right off the face-off. Made it happen. Ovechkin style.
He did.
He did. And look, here's the thing. That told Calgary, hey, we just fought your dude. We just scored a goal. We're taking this win home.
Mm-hmm.
I love everything about it. I am going to nominate this duo. I'm nominating them as a duo.
Okay. Our show, our rules.
Right. Philip Forsberg and Gus Nyquist, both with 1 goal and 3 assists in the last 3 games.
Yeah.
Points leaders for the team. Really impressive. And because I think, I hate the term snake bit.
I do too.
I don't like it.
I know. And yet
it's fitting. But these 2 guys have been snake bit, and there have been a
Mm-hmm.
lot of discussion about them being snake, but they still quietly, without a lot of flash, managed to lead the team in points over the last PBR week. And so here's the thing. Final nominee, Justus Annunen. Solid performance this week. Did exactly what you need your backup goalie to do. So, hard to choose, but the Beyond the Edge award this week goes to Fedor Svechkov.
it's hard to argue with giving Fedor Svechkov anything. A
I agree.
PBR award, plate of cookies.
I think he deserves it.
Yeah, he is just a delight. And I think he is one of those young people that walks into the locker room and just brings a vibe.
I think so.
Yeah.
I like all of the things I've seen of him interview wise and on camera.
Mhm.
Very, very good personality.
Yeah.
Very, very funny, very personable.
Mhm.
He gets it.
Yeah. Got to, when I covered the Milwaukee Admirals in the playoffs last year for Penalty Box Radio, got to go up to Milwaukee for one of the postseason games and interviewed Fedor Svechkov. And the one thing that he really wanted me to be sure to know as a fact is that Igor Afanasyev will lie and say he beats him in video games, but he did not.
That's very important.
That was key takeaway
Yeah.
from my time with Fedor Svechkov.
Look, he's going to tell you,
He's going to tell
but
me.
it's not true.
He's going to own it. Yep. I always give out here at the PBR Live, I give out the Stars and Strikes Momentum Shift Award for the player who turned the tide of a game with the key play, hit, or shift in energy, swinging momentum in the team's favor. You know, you named some great players who I think did that. I do think we need to shout out UC Saros, Justus Ananen for goaltending this week, Fedor Svechkov, another player. I'm not going to go through a whole list of nominees because I think there were several. I'm just going to go straight to it. And I think you would agree with me. This is Jonathan Marchessault's award this week.
Absolutely.
And again, it comes back to that fight versus Matt Coronado. And look, I raised children, and so I have to say that I'm not in favor of fighting. That was one of our rules, no fighting. But I also trained in mixed martial arts, so I know there's some fun to it. And there is a time and a place. Just don't hit the heads.
Well, that's fair.
You know, don't hit that. And also, can we do a segment next week on why we should wear our helmets during warmups?
Yes.
It would. I will unfurl the scroll of my
Oh.
reasons, and I will address it
Out of
specifically.
your bag of hockey grudges, is that
My invisible
your
backpack
invisible
of hockey
backpack of
grudges. Yes, I'll pull the
hockey
scroll out.
grudge? Okay.
Jonathan Marchessault, please wear a helmet. But I do feel like, you know, this is a guy, we talked about it sooner, like he has a vibe to him
Right.
that you just don't, or you're not going to want to mess with him. But if you do, it's going to cost you something. And what it cost Calgary was a goal.
Yeah. No,
You
it
know,
did.
It
And
cost
that's
Calgary a goal. I mean, Fedor Svechkov just said, okay. And look, Jonathan Marchessault is a delightful person in the
Yeah.
locker room. I think you would agree. Very personable.
absolutely.
Love that he gives very honest. He's very transparent. He's very authentic.
Yes.
But he also walks with a bit of not today Satan to him.
Yeah.
And we saw the not today Satan. So for me, I really feel like that was a tide turning. When you see somebody who doesn't usually fight,
Yeah.
you say, all right, I'll give you an award. And so I do.
And I think that shifted the momentum of that game.
I do.
And,
I
and
do.
I'll say, it's interesting. You say the walking with a bit of the not today Satan vibe.
Oh, yeah.
Let's go back a few years in internet history. I think, it reminds me of the honey badger.
The honey badger.
You don't mess with the honey badger. Honey badger don't care. You don't remember this, Ann?
I have no idea what
Oh,
you're
wow.
talking about.
I
mean, look,
definitely know what you're talking
Okay.
about.
I will
Thank you,
tell
Jake.
you the animal, the honey badger, is terrifying.
Right.
And that's that.
Is
This
this
is
not-
where
A nickname for somebody?
yes, it is.
Yeah.
Oh, who was the honey badger?
Football player. I can't remember his name.
Taran Matthew
Yeah.
from LSU,
Yeah.
and then he went on to play for the Cardinals and I
Yeah.
believe the Saints and maybe another team. I can't remember.
Interesting that he went honey badger.
Well, I think it was given to him. But
Okay.
there was,
Yeah, I think he earned that name
there
at
was
LSU.
there was a video with someone doing their own narration for like a National Geographic thing about the honey badger, which we probably can't play on air. But as soon as this goes off, you should look it up because we're gonna watch it here in the studio. Ann, fair? Okay.
Terrifying.
Yeah. But there's a little bit of the honey badger there.
100%.
So
Yeah, I would speak respectfully.
that brings us to the Goldstone Financial Group Solid Gold Player of the Week. Normally, when we're in studio, we have Jake be the deciding vote on our
Mhm.
nominees. Last week, not in the studio, we had young Kalen Smith.
Yep. I
You're-
didn't even peer pressure him, and I was the winner. I
you're-
just want you to know that,
Your,
Jake. I
your
was the
left
winner.
defender for the 10U Music City Marauders.
the second show in a row where I don't get to pick.
Sorry, man. All right. Anyway,
Collusion.
well, you didn't hear us mention this guy's name before, and there was a reason. It was because we were kind of saving him for this, but we have both nominated and your winner of the Goldstone Financial Group Solid Gold Player of the Week, and
Ryan O'Reilly.
the Factor himself, with the hat trick. Probably
Yes.
one of the best moments from this last PBR
So
week.
great.
Anyway, coming up, we got 2 Preds games. We actually get to be on the air 2 weeks in a row. Very exciting. We'll be coming to you again, same time, same channel. But thank you for listening to Penalty Box Radio live on 102.5 The Game, presented by Goldstone Financial Group. If you want smart investing with a company with a proven track record of fiduciary responsibility, look no further than Goldstone Financial Group. Also, thanks to Stars and Strikes of Smyrna and Beyond the Edge, East Nashville. See you again next week.